All right. Welcome back, everybody, to the brain injury discussion. This is Jay, and we're going to talk about a interesting issue today, and that is sleep. Now, sleep is, of course, very important to your body and to your brain. There are certain professions of which, you should definitely have some form of sleep. But sleep is a daily thing, or at least it should be a nightly thing, ideally. Now, having worked night shift, I know that's tougher. It's tougher done than said. So, but anyways, with that being said, let's get into this information because there's certainly a good amount to cover. Um, Sources in the description below, also at the end. Feel free to like, subscribe, and comment. Why does our brain need something like sleep? Well, it is important to the brain's function and performance. If you are working a piece of heavy machinery, do you want someone who has been awake for 24 hours, or do you want someone who has had a good 8 hours of sleep? Do you want someone who's tired flying that aircraft, or do you want someone who is well rested flying that aircraft with other people and cargo on board? So the brain needs that sleep in order to function. So there's the link right there. It is function and performance. Now, the lack of sleep is linked to neurological problems. Um, so some of these problems may include items like someone's mood. Now, to be honest, when I get up in the morning and I drink my coffee, I'm usually happy after drinking my coffee, but usually if you're tired, you're not going to be in a good mood. So let's put a downward arrow there. Your mood is probably not going to be happy if you are tired, maybe, and that'll kind of link into performance, right? Maybe your behavior, maybe you're going to act tired. You'll become more irritable. And as for as much as the world is, we don't need any more irritability. Maybe that affects our behavior. It can also be a cause of anxiety or worry. So if you are awake, typically your brain is running on fumes. Just like you see those cars running around on NASCAR, they are usually, sustaining high temperatures while doing that. They're wearing their engines out. That is why when we go without sleep, we're wearing our brains out. Um, of course, sleep is important to your social and your emotional health. You need to be able to perform. Yes, you do need to have functioning, but you also got to be able to function outside. You got to be able to function with other brains out there in the world. And so we talk a lot about functioning and why sleep is important. Now, just to think about it, again, that airline pilot, he needs to be well rested. He needs to be sharp and on his game. Same thing with anyone who operates heavy machinery, no matter how big it is. Maybe if you're driving a car, you should be well rested. In fact, that's one of the things that you can control is making sure that you are not falling asleep at the wheel. So, with that being said, let's move on. There's more to get into. And so, what happens if you start losing sleep? Well, overall health will probably go down because there's a lot of things that sleep goes into from the neck downwards. But overall health is usually going to start going down. You're going to see behavioral and mental changes. You're going to be tired. So if your brain's already exhausted, you're already going to be in that area where you're not going to be at your peak. You might see issues with memory, maybe cognitive or functional deficits. So you might not remember if you took a pill, or maybe if you did a certain task, or if you ever thought about doing something like that. Again, these are the things. Now, long term, and again, this is this article here, it points that lost sleep can be an attributing factor to Alzheimer's, dementia, anxiety, addiction, mental health disorders, and as well as other maladaptive changes. Now, what could those maladaptive changes be? Well, it could be any one of these, or it could be other things, like maybe you're tired, so you have to intake more caffeine. And if you're doing it dangerously, that could be a problem, right? So that would be another maladaptive order. Maybe you're taking a lot of medication to try to get you to sleep. Well, that could be something else that is compensatory to what's actually sleep. So again, sleep hygiene is important. Other maladaptive orders kind of tie in with behavioral mental changes. So um, and this list can go on and on and on about the different things that happen, usually when you are under a condition of sleep deprivation. So, that being said, let's move on to the next slide. And so, what happens if you have a brain injury? What happens to your sleep? Well, every brain injury is in fact unique, but it is recognized as an under-recognized sequela or a side effect. So if you've had a brain injury, chances are your sleep might be affected, or the quality, maybe not just the quantity, maybe the quality of your sleep was affected. So, especially if you're in the clinical world, you might want to consider that. They've had a concussion, well, maybe they're having sleep problems now. Obviously, they're connected. And what we see, especially with sleep deprivation as well as maybe oversleeping too, is you'll see increased fatigue, some sleepiness, and irritability. Again, um, that happens with everyone when they're tired, but if your brain has sustained some sort of damage, you can expect that there will probably be the need for more sleep or higher quality sleep, or maybe where the brain is trying to you know, heal itself is going to need that rest in order to heal itself. And this was an interesting statistic by this source down here. Of course, that'll be in the description. 50%, again, 50% of TBI victims report sleep disturbances. So, again, traumatic brain injury victims or survivors, really, um, sleep disturbances. So maybe they're waking up in the middle of the night. Maybe um, they are having some sort of post-traumatic stress. Maybe they're having trouble falling asleep, maybe due to the anxiety, maybe due to other kind of worries and irritability. Maybe they're not staying asleep. Now, again, it's not just about getting to sleep, it's about staying asleep and getting to that quality of sleep. So, again, that is something that as a brain injury case manager, you might want to consider. Is this an issue that, relates to the brain injury where, maybe there's some cognitive things that we can do? Maybe we could readjust the schedule. Hey, no more caffeine after this time. Stuff like that might be able to help someone. So, that being said, let's move on. So obviously we know that, you know, sleep deprivation and TBI kind of goes hand in hand. But we also, again, these are the sources. I'm not making this up. It worsens PTSD symptoms. So if someone's got this PTSD, like let's say if they were in the military and they were deployed, or maybe they were in a bad car accident, or maybe there's something else that caused the PTSD. Sleep deprivation makes it worse, especially if you have a brain injury. And so we'll see two ends of the spectrum sometimes, maybe sometimes in the same person at different times. Insomnia, which you might hear of, that's a lack of sleep or just no sleep whatsoever. And then you have something called hypersomnia. And the amount of these actually increased in brain injury survivors. So, insomnia, which is losing sleep, no sleep. And then you have hypersomnia, where someone is sleeping way too much. There is such a thing as too much of a good thing, and sleep can fall into that category. So, if you're sleeping uh, more than 8, 9 hours a day, that might be something there. And again, that would be something to talk to your primary care provider about and ask the question, hey, why am I sleeping 12 hours a day? I can't get anything done. Or maybe I'm sleeping 2 hours a day, 4 hours a day with some insomnia symptoms. That'd be good questions for your primary care provider. And of course, is deals with recovery and healing. So healing happens when you are sleeping, and usually this leads to poor prognosis, which prognosis is a fancy term of outcome. So it can lead to a poor outcome. That being said, let's move on. And so, what does this lead me as brain injury case manager to conclude, right? Um, if someone talks about sleep, obviously I should notate it as important. It's important to the normal brain function. It's important with everybody, really. It's not just those with a brain injury, but also everyone else. Maybe someone else around someone with a brain injury. Maybe they need some sleep too. I know I do. Is vital to the brain injury recovery. Of course, that is when your brain recovers, rests, kind of goes into a sleep mode. And it makes sense. It needs time to rest. It's important to someone's mental, emotional, and behavioral health. Again, those are life things that need to happen. And of course, physical health and your brain function require a good brain that has the appropriate amount and quality of sleep. And so when one considers this, the lack of sleep, very detrimental, not just to the neck up and what's going on in the brain, but also to the neck down. And so let's go to an interesting scenario. Someone who has normal brain function, like let's say they're tired, right? And they get a brain injury, and then they start showing some symptoms. That's why sleep is very important. One, you're going to need to sleep roughly 8 hours every day, but sleep is where the brain heals itself and makes a difference. That's where you really get some benefits from sleep. You need the proper amount and the proper quality. I can't say that enough. So, with that being said, those are the references. We would love it if you'd give us a good thumbs up. Maybe you got something out of this video. Feel free to leave it in a comment, especially if you have a topic you would like us to cover in the future. We're always looking for new things to cover. And if there's something that interests you, you could definitely do so. Make a, feel free to make the request. We'll see what we can do. Also, if you like this, I would interest you in subscribing and maybe sharing this with a friend. But with that being said, I hope everyone has an absolutely wonderful day and take care, everybody.